Yeah, alright, hit the button. Yeah, Professor Anton, response video to the response video. Yay. Look, I like Corey, okay? Yeah, he's a nice guy. His basic character is a good human character. So don't get this wrong. I mean, I'm arguing with a philosophy, like any other philosophy that's out there that, you know, and one that's tending towards making a lot of excuses for life, the game of life. A lot of bows and dressing and distractions and distortions, in my opinion. And that's what I'm arguing with. And so, yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing that. And I don't think my style was all that harsh, considering. But anyway, let's on to the show. We got a lot of comments. Yeah, here we go. Fun.
So I thought I would try to follow up some of the discussion
Good.
I've been having about consciousness and nothingness, and the way that consciousness is a kind of nothingness that haunts the world as another. And I
look at this shit. You know, this is the evil of Google. You see this? I mean, yeah, okay, I purchased some stuff at Harbor Freight, and look at this, and now here it is in the Google ad, Harbor Freight. And it's batteries, something I'm a little bit obsessed with. I mean, I really hate that. I mean, these scumbags are, you know, they're in your pants here. I mean, they really are in your fucking pants. Anyway, I'm on to the video.
saw that Gary has posted up some kind of ridiculous response where it's apparent to me he has no idea what I'm even talking about.
Well, it should be apparent to you because I said it quite explicitly. What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, I've made it really clear. I don't see how it's relevant to anything I find meaningful on planet Earth. I can't make any connection to anything that I've defined as having a value or being meaningful, either on a personal, subjective level, where, like, I might say, I like to have a Dr. Pepper now and then, or where I might say, yes, it's fun to have sex or something, or it doesn't relate to anything I can make sense of. And then on an intellectual level, yes, it's completely non-coherent. I can't make it coherent to a single number or word or concept inside my head. That's right. So yes, yes, that's exactly correct. You've deduced the obvious. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
And maybe I will try to ease into the discussion to try to make some of that clear. And I also want to say, it's almost like it's odd. I mean, the kind of style of Gary's responses are, again, this sort of, he's going to put me on a pedestal and suggest that I'm sort of degenerately talking about things that don't really matter, as if what he's doing really matters.
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, I don't even think I'm doing that. But the truth of the matter is that you do have professor in your name, so right there, you know, you've got to expect a little bit of more severe of a standard. You are well read, so again, there's a standard you're supposed to meet. Okay, you are an intellectual. All right, so yeah, you're sure, you know, you do have a certain obligation. You're not some guy from Arkansas, you know, who doesn't know what the fuck is going on planet Earth at all. So yeah, you have to meet a higher standard, and if you find that too burdensome, well, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to say, and this is probably makes me unpopular on YouTube, I don't think YouTube is making this great difference in the world the way some people think it is.
I don't think anybody thinks YouTube is making a great difference in the world. I think everybody is seeing from YouTube is a perfect example of how the intelligence doesn't make a difference in the world, that the world is run by crap and shit and fucking pukey Google ads and all this other crap that runs the fucking world. So again, if you're going to accuse me of something, I mean, the last thing you can accuse me of is saying that, oh, this YouTube thing matters. But what matters is me. I matter. I matter to me, okay? And every thinker in the whole history of thinking was nothing before they were something. Before these guys you quote were somebody, they were nobody, okay? And that's the way it works. So yeah, I'm a nobody. You can assume I will remain a nobody. Whatever comes out of my mouth will remain irrelevant and meaningless. Fine. That's your assumption. I still think it needs to be addressed. I think I still am making an argument that needs to be answered. You can pretend it doesn't matter and that you don't have any obligation. Fine, go ahead and pretend. I'm imposing the obligation on you. Makes sense.
I think it's a lot of self-congratulatory people who are bored, who are having fun at something like a cocktail party, and they're sharing information, and it's fun to sit around at a cocktail party and have conversation. But to imagine that you're somehow
Again, this critique of this is like some sort of thing you engage in because it's fun. Yeah, I'd say the trolls are doing that, okay? They're entertaining themselves. They're filling their dead space. But I would think that would be... That's a silly critique of my 2000 videos. There's pain being expressed in my 2000 videos. There's a great deal of discomfort being displayed in my 2000 videos. This isn't fucking fun. I can think of fun ways to do this. I could do YouTube as a comedian. I'm a funny guy. I could do funny fucking videos. But yeah, that wouldn't mean anything to me. So I talk about what means something to me. Yeah, that's enough.
saving the world by rant of this thing that you call the truth. Dude, you're deluded, man. You're deep.
Oh, whatever. I'm deluded and you proved it how? Oh, that's right. You didn't. Yeah, you didn't provide any logical explanation for this delusion that I'm under. So again, point out the delusion. I'm not stating I'm making a difference from a YouTube platform. I'm not saying... I am saying that, yes, you haven't... None of you people can make an argument that's worth a shit. That I am saying. And I think you're deluded if you think, you know, talking about trees falling in the forest is going to be an answer to anything. Because it's really not.
Deluded. Okay. At any rate, I thought I would talk a little bit more about consciousness as nothing, and I think, you know, part of it is there's a long history of Western philosophy that, for my opinion, is deeply confused, and it comes with, and it sounds kind of like this is what Gary is harboring. Gary is harboring something like a kind of Cartesian individualism. He is harboring something like a deep down self that is somehow, I think, represents the world.
Yeah, well, whatever. Again, you're gonna... I don't even... That doesn't even make any sense. The fact that I'm an individual is, I think, just... There's no way you're gonna make a logical argument to deny that I'm different than you are. That my consciousness is a separate functioning individual machine, just like every car is a separate car. Yes, when they get on the highway, they become a mass, and that mass can be judged for what it's accomplishing and doing also. But there's no denying the individuality. There really isn't. And most of my videos, I'm never talking about my individuality. What I'm talking about is the future of sentient life on planet Earth. I'm not giving a fuck about my individuality. What I'm talking about is what kind of world will tomorrow be because of what kind of conversation we're having fucking today.
And I just don't buy that. I think there are people who believe the subject is over here and the object is over there, and in some way there is an issue of accurate or less than accurate representation of the world.
I don't even know what that means, but look, yes, I have a premise. My premise is that this thing called suffering matters. The suffering is experienced by individuals. It is not experienced by all of us at once. It is experienced as individuals. And it's got to be appreciated that way. And that's how the math has to be done. You have to do the underlying calculations. You have to acknowledge the existence of the underlying entities to do the math. So... yeah, if it was all unsentient, non-sentient matter, then all this talk about how it's all one thing would be fine. Because there'd be no need to acknowledge the individuality, because the individuality would be completely meaningless. But so would the collective. I mean, what you're saying doesn't go anywhere, because it all becomes meaningless if you deny the meaning of the single individual experiencing the sentient experience. That's where the core, the root of the whole thing lies. All meaning exists in that one thing capable of feeling.
Me, that eclipses the larger problem of how the world is what it is. right? Again, this is Heidegger's critique of Descartes in a lot of ways. We don't need to get into all the technicalities of it. I think the simpler way to say it is to say, instead of saying that the mind over here represents the world over there, what you do is you say there is a kind of consciousness which is nothingness, and that nothingness is a special kind of nothingness. It's a room-making nothingness. It's an emptiness that allows for the reception of what it's not, and it makes possible for two different kind of phenomena. There's physical phenomena.
Well, whatever. I just don't see why this has to be so complicated. Well, aren't we just trying to add up what life is? So we put into the mix our understanding of evolution, of natural selection, the fact that we gain faculties, that one of those faculties is this thing that arises in us called consciousness that enables us to be functional, to learn, to manipulate the environment, to recognize that this is in front of that, and somehow now we have defined this relationship. This one little bit of the universe has now been acknowledged and incorporated into something's mental representation. But that's all it is a mental representation. It's not that the whole universe does not exist inside of our psychology. But it can, in a sense, I suppose, in the sense that we can understand. We can understand millions of cars on a highway by seeing millions of cars on a highway. We don't have to see the million. We don't have to know every headlight. We don't have to know every engine, but we can understand it. And so yes, we can understand things that. But I also don't understand that there's no meaning to those acknowledgments. You keep pointing to examples that have no meaning. Put into one of your examples something that is sentient. Put something that has a welfare into one of your examples. So have your tree fall in the forest on a kitten named Ferdinand, and have Ferdinand spend the next 3 days struggling to get free of the impediment, and have him, when he moves, have him, oh dear, he just cracked another bone in his leg because he tried to escape, and now he's in super pain instead of just regular pain. He's in double pain. And then it takes another half a day for that pain to subside, and then he tries again. And talk about something fucking real, and quit talking about shit that doesn't fucking matter. So put into your fucking example something that matters. Somebody dying in pain, not somebody dying in bliss. Talk about a fucking reality for a change.
And mental phenomena. In some way, consciousness discloses an inner world or an inner life, what's sometimes called the eidetic realm, or nomadic structures in the brain. There's a sort of, again, whether you want to talk about it as the
yeah, whatever. Like I said, I don't even know what are you talking about? We can all acquire some kind of delusion about what kind of world we're in. I could imagine I'm living in the world of Ricochet Rabbit and Droopy Dog, or whatever his name was. And yeah, and the things, little bullets have personality, and they do all kinds of funny things, and yeah, it's all very funny, and big hammers come out and smash things, but they're okay, in 5 minutes. And yeah, I could just pretend that's the world I'm living in, and everything's just fine and okay, and yeah, it all makes sense, but somehow we're just doing some kind of simple catch the bad guy thing. We let the bad guy go 5 minutes later, but we just catch the bad guy, let him go, and then we catch the bad guy again, let him go, and we catch the bad guy and we let him go. We just play this stupid little game narrative that we've made for ourselves. Or else we can sit there and try to be intelligent and try to figure out what's the reality of this stupid game we're playing. What is the real matrix that we are caught up in? Is it a matrix that has any purpose or accomplishment? Is there anything to be gained for the price we're paying for it? Or are we just going to keep pretending the price doesn't exist? Which I think you're doing.
Poetic, right? The cognitive, that has been made possible by a kind of room-making nothingness, and you can also find it in the way perception itself. I mean, perception sort of reveals it. And now, my guess is, again, people are hearing this going, what are you talking about? I'm very confused. Well, let's see if I can ease into this. Again, I don't think it's...
Yeah, well, you keep promising you're going to do this easement, and you never really do it. You really never get to something real. I mean, you never talk about the real substance of life, which is, this orgasm and cancer, this dichotomy of of suffering and pleasure and desire and addiction, and use a word that I can understand. These are words I understand. I don't understand a nothingness that is a something in the context of the absolute empty
It's
was
that complicated.
once.
I think some people are trying to make it more complicated. I think they don't want to understand it because deep down it fundamentally challenges their I'm over here and the world's over there orientation.
Well, that's like everybody says that. Even the Christians say that kind of, oh, you don't want to know God because God isn't going to like you, so you don't want to know him because God is going to say you're a poop head. Yeah, everybody can play that game.
Well, let's just look at a wonderful little passage here from Way of Zen by Alan Watts. Watts here talks about a particular young man, and this is a Buddhist story, and it's talking about this patriarch who was deciding who would be his successor or who was going to come into the sort of this tradition. And during the night, this young man posted this poem, and this is what he posts there. And he wasn't sure about the poem, but he says, "The body is the Bodhi tree, the mind like a bright mirror standing."
Ugh, whatever. So again, even these kind of metaphors and this kind of mythology is almost like religion. I mean, the first gods were really gamers, okay? The Zeuses and the rest of them, I mean, they had sex and they were, you know, silly human in so many respects, even the Viking gods. And then man, no, we can't have these myths. That's just too silly. And so they made a god that, yeah, you have a personal relationship with, but he never listens to you. He never talks to you. You're just shit. You're just garbage. You have to somehow earn your right to be, even to have an audience with the powerful, mighty god. And now you're creating a third god who is this mystical knowledge thing, this enlightenment god. Okay, and he's supposed to be incredibly simple. Like, yeah, like life is so preposterously simple, but nobody can understand it because it's so simple. It's so simple that nobody can understand it, and that's the new bullshit. You know, I mean, sorry, but that's all this is. This is just bullshit.
"A care to wipe it all the time and allow no dust to cling." This is sort of a beautiful poem. And he says, "The following morning, the patriarch read the poem and ordered incense to be burned before it, saying that all who put it into practice would be able to realize their true nature. But when who's I'm not sure how to say that name, came to him in private and claimed authorship, the patriarch declared that his understanding was still far from perfect. On the following day, another poem appeared beside the first."
Yeah, so that's just some sort of ego lesson because he took credit for being wise. You know, that was a demonstration of the fact that he was making himself an other, you know, separating himself from the source of his knowledge and taking credit for what wasn't his to produce.
He says, "There never was a Bodhi tree nor bright mirror standing. Fundamentally, no one thing exists. So where is the dust to cling?"
And I'm not even opposed to that kind of drivel. Okay, I mean, this idea that yes, we are deterministic. That what makes us is all the crap that's around us. That, you know, one man doesn't land on the moon. I mean, that's sort of a metaphor for it, I guess you could say. I mean, one man doesn't do anything. Okay, it takes all the fodder that's ground up, the grist, the fuel that creates that moment. And fine, whatever. I mean, you know, that doesn't explain anything. It doesn't have any meaning about life. I mean, you want to have an argument about whether people should be as egomaniacal and separate as they are, as whether they should be elitist. I'm completely against elitism. I'm completely against making those distinctions, except for, you know, rabid dog and not rabid dog. I mean, the only distinction I want to make is between those people who are part of civilization and those people who want to destroy civilization. Yes, but that's it. So yeah, agreed that ego should be nothing, but we are animals and we will fail.
This issue of what is a mirror Now, I don't think that consciousness is like a mirror. I think a mirror is perhaps a physical analogy that works to help clarify part of what we mean by consciousness. That is, when you look at a mirror, you generally, you can't see the mirror. You see what the mirror is reflecting. That is, when you look, you don't normally look at the surface. Now, unless the surface is very dirty and it has, smudges and stuff, and then we say, well,
Yeah, I got some of that. It's a little bit dusty over there. But anyway, yeah, whatever. Okay, so another a metaphor, another way of describing what though? How does this deal with the fundamental question, which is we are biological organisms on an island planet consuming resources and consuming this thing, this qualitative thing that might be described as suffering in a general manner. Okay, little Ferdinand kittens and such, and little dying humans wishing to be killed and being dead, and because they're in pain and they're suffering. This is the reality of the world. I mean, how does this mirror crap reflect anything, any light, any wisdom, any knowledge on this circumstance that the game we're playing, and whether the game has any justification?
it's not a very good mirror because I keep seeing it rather than what it's reflecting. But this issue of the mirror somehow presents what it is not. It makes room for what it is not. And I guess consciousness, you could say, is somewhat similar to a mirror. Now, again, a mirror is...
Yeah, well, look, maybe a mirror in a telescope might make sense because it concentrates and it focuses. All right, so that gives us something richer. But a mirror, like you're describing it, isn't even functionally necessary. We can just look at the reality. We can just turn our view and say, oh, there it is there. I don't even have to look at it in the mirror. I can look at it right over there. All I do is turn my head and I can look at the real thing, not the reflection. The reflection that's usually delimited.
It's a physical thing, and there may even be, I mean, obviously there are physical components in consciousness, but consciousness is like the process of which the mirror is a thing. Consciousness somehow enables a rendering of the world, you could say, from a certain perspective. Now, here's where
Fine, and I'm not opposed to that one. I would argue, though, that a mirror is a bad metaphor. A recorder would be a better metaphor. We record experience, we record impacts, we record events, and then we coalesce them into things. I just coalesced them into saying the word coalesce. Okay, I mean, and it wasn't just a reflection of something. Okay, it was a compilation of things, a giant collection, a giant huge ball of string or something. Some other kind of representation of time and experience. And so a mirror is kind of an empty way, in my opinion, to metaphor something that has collected eons of knowledge. Eons. Well, I don't know if it's been eons. But anyway, we've been doing this collecting knowledge thing for quite a while. And I wouldn't be able to say the word knowledge if somebody a few thousand years ago didn't give that word meaning.
I think it gets tricky. Now let's go to this question. I think lots of people love the question, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound?
Right, but if it falls on Ferdinand, okay, and Ferdinand meows and is in pain, is that pain real? If there's no witness, is Ferdinand real? Does it exist? Is it still a kitten caught under a tree, even though there's nobody to hear Ferdinand screams?
Here's the question I would like to ask, and I want to hear Gary come at this. Other people, please try to get at this issue. Is the mirror always reflecting something?
Well, again, the analogy is, the metaphor is broken in terms of what our consciousness is. So I would say our consciousness is always reflecting something because it can't exist when it's not on, obviously. It's not collecting when it's turned off. So when it's on, it's on. Yes, it's collecting information. It can't exist in in an environment of nothing. It can only exist in an environment of something. It's dependent on the body that feeds it. So, I mean, I just don't know what I can do with this metaphor. But is it possible to put a mirror in a place where it can reflect nothing? Certainly. I mean, I guess a mirror at the end of the universe, looking out at whatever's out there, isn't going to see anything. Okay, if it's not pointing at something producing photons, then it's going to have nothing to reflect. This is true. But I don't even know where you want. I don't know exactly where you're going with the metaphor.
Is the mirror always reflecting something? If there's no one there looking at a mirror, is the mirror reflecting something?
Well, that's another question, isn't it? Looking, looking isn't like my eyes go to do something. Looking is receiving. Looking is accepting, okay? It's not producing, okay? It's acknowledging, it's recognizing. That's what we do. So again, the kitten is screaming. Whether we're hearing it or not, the screams exist in the atmosphere. The impact, the movement of matter has taken place. Everything is as it was, except we are missing. We are the only nothing. Everything else is still something. We're nothing then. If we're not there to hear it, we're the nothing. We're not the something that the nothing that the something other something needs to exist. I don't even get this conversation. See, this is what it does. It just turns into convoluted mush. Why are we speculating on the fact that we think when we close our eyes the world disappears? We know better. That's not the truth. We know that. Okay? We're not that silly. Do we really have to have that silly a conversation?
What exactly is it reflecting? From what angle? Isn't there something about the observer and the observed that can be disclosed in that question?
Yeah, well, look, I think it's fine to talk. I mean, I'm always talking about perspective and, putting things in its proper perspective. Like, what is the important thing and where is it in perspective to things? And so that's why I will talk about our desires and attempt to trivialize them and minimize them and get people to understand that what we're chasing is the bullshit and the real substance is the thing we're running from, which is the death and which is the harm and the suffering and the pain. The thing we have minimized is the thing that's important. The thing that we're maximizing is the thing that has no importance. Our superficial ego gratifications, our sense of accomplishment. Having the bag of potato chips today will do nothing to feed the world tomorrow. That kind of perspective is what I'm attempting to convey.
Is the mirror always reflecting something? And can't we see the problem of whatever it's reflecting is in some way a correlate to the perspective of the person looking?
Well, again, we're just back to this argument whether we can define meaning in some more absolute, universal, objective sense. So if I don't even know what you're asking with this question. It's just too metaphorical. Does the mirror still the mirror is still doing everything it was doing, whether the person is there to receive the rebound? I mean, if a basketball hits the basketball rim and it bounces into the audience and there's no audience for it to hit, does it change the fact that it didn't go in the hoop? I mean, we can come up with 4 million examples, but you're just talking about whether there's something there to catch. You're not talking about whether there's something there to influence or change.
Okay, now I think if we can see that, we move into that problem, it starts to become very apparent that consciousness makes room for that which can be reflected. To say that that which can be reflected is somehow there independent of you looking at it, that's a problem.
It's not a problem for me, so I guess that's the part I don't get. Okay, the relationships exist, the reality exists. Whether we acknowledge its existence is completely irrelevant to the fact that it exists. I'm not right now acknowledging, the the Fruton Nebula. I'm just totally not acknowledging its existence. It totally doesn't exist inside of my consciousness as part of my mental model whatsoever. It doesn't change the fact that it's there, and it can be observed by somebody else at any time they choose to turn their view to it.
That's a problem. That's called reification. Yes. You can't get at what is being reflected without assuming a kind of angle of an observer, and that angle of the observer is, again, it introduces a kind of, I must say it, it's the perspective by which that thing becomes what it is. It's not like my...
But again, that's, again with this, that you're just talking about perspective now. You're just talking about slices of the truth. And whether or not, and the point is we have the intelligence to turn the mirror. We have the intelligence to find all perspective and to look at each perspective and to see every part of something. We can see, I mean, I can see one side of this, the camera seeing the other side. Now I've covered both angles. Now both angles have been represented in some sort of material form that can be viewed. So now at this moment I can see the front, and later when I play this video I can see the back. Yeah, bingo.
Mind is over here representing it. If you say that it's representing it, then you're saying that it's there first and then my mind represents it. But the point is that it can't be what it is without my mind. And in that sense, conscious...
See, again, that's just... What's the point of that? To say that somehow you have to acknowledge it for it to exist, again, is it denying what existence is? Existence isn't being acknowledged. You know, I mean, you know, we know how many of, what percentage of the cubs killed by a lion who, you know, wipes out the dominant male lion and takes over a pride. How many of those cubs in their experience has been acknowledged by a human being? What percentage in the time of lions? We're talking about 1/billionth, right? 1/billionth has been represented and been acknowledged. Does that mean that the other 99.9 million% has never existed? That it never happened? I mean, it just is. It's a dead end argument.
Is a nothing. It's not a thing over here representing. If anything, there is a materiality that makes for a process by which a nothing haunts the world as if it were another. Now I want to see if I can get it even further.
You know, that doesn't go anywhere for me, so I'll just talk about something completely different. As I don't know, haunting again. Whatever. I just can't make anything of that poetry. And that's what this is. It's just poetry. So fine, do poetry on the internet. Fine. But don't use the word atheism when you do it, and we'll probably be okay. But when you say atheism somehow doesn't answer a question, it does. You just have to ask a coherent question. But what? Right, so evolution was taking place. Before man acknowledged the process, evolution happened, correct? I mean, we don't have to acknowledge a process for a process to exist.
If I have two pens here. I've done this in other videos. If I have these objects, I think these objects are here independent of people, but the relations are not here independent of the observer, okay? The relations, that is, here, you know, one is in front of the other, now the other is in front of that one.
Right, but that's just us having the intelligence to discern a relationship, to identify it, to recognize a relationship. Our capacity to recognize a relationship doesn't mean the relationship doesn't exist. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, certainly it doesn't have any meaning till, you know, we say, okay, here's the explanation of why that's meaningful. But the relationship exists, just like the Ferdinand suffering under the tree. It exists. Whether you walk by and say, oh my God, this is horrible, is really totally irrelevant to the existence of that Ferdinand under a tree.
are the relations of in front of simply being represented? If you say they are, you're missing how they're actually being accomplished. That is, they wouldn't be the relations they are without the consciousness. To say that they're just there and that you're just representing them, that's to miss the most important phenomena there.
Oh, well, that's kind of a pile of crap anyway. I'm sorry. Because we could say that about everything in the sense that, I mean, I think I get where you're going here in a way, but then we're just talking about what we make it seem like. I mean, I could look at a tree, and I could think about the trees in The Wizard of Oz, and all of a sudden I can make my tree seem like it has a personality and that it's kind of cranky, or it's happy, or, you know, it wants some fertilizer, or whatever, it's smoking a cigarette. Yeah, I'm smoking a real cigarette. No real crime, okay? I'm still doing the electronic cigarette thing, okay? I still am, fuckers. Anyway, yeah, you know, so, yeah, we can imagine, we can glorify, we can impose our fantasies onto reality, and therefore create a significance that isn't real. So I mean, that's the jeopardy of what you're talking about here, is that we'll see what isn't there. We will create something that isn't there, and it will be bullshit.
Right? Which is, there is a kind of room-making nothingness that makes possible for relations to be real. Okay. I don't know if that...
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, for relations to be real. Fine, whatever. I mean, I don't know who's denying the reality of relationships. So I don't know where this goes. And again, I don't know how it connects to a single piece of anything that has cogent or substantive meaning to me. I am, admittedly, I'm an advocate for the suffering. I'm an advocate for the maligned and disregarded pain that takes place on planet Earth. That's a primary focus. A secondary focus is attempting to find some way to make my life purposeful in terms of protecting the future from excess of that suffering I see as being the substantive value. So how do I take anything that you're talking about and make it relevant to that equation? That I can't see anywhere. And I certainly can't see how it relates to my relationship to a bag of potato chips. So where do I go with this?
Doesn't make sense. I don't know what to tell you.
Fine. That's exactly fine. Yeah, and I don't know what to tell you. I mean, like I said, if you're going to still talk about subjects like religion, theism, and atheism, then you're going to be relevant to my conversation, okay? You're going to be relevant to my audience. You're going to be relevant to the audience I'm speaking to, attempting to speak to, attempting to get to. So you're going to be part of the equation, and I'm going to make videos expressing what I contend to be the dead end that is this kind of conversation that doesn't talk about anything real to our existence or real to where we know we got here from. Again, you're implying that there's a substance to consciousness beyond its evolutionary source, that we are in tune to something or doing something that is a fundamental function of the universe itself. And I would argue that there's zero evidence of that except in your own phantasmagorical fantasies. Okay, that's good enough. Lots of comments though, lots and lots and lots, millions of pages of bibbly babble. Anyway, and batteries, goddamn Google bastards. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's enough, right? Yeah. Okay, till next time.